Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Path Towards Remembrance. It's something that I was supposed to do. Actually, I think I was supposed to record this video about a month ago and a half, but it's been a very interesting and a very busy time for myself, and as I know for many of you, a lot of interesting insights, a lot of interesting transformations. So I think that this video will be recorded in the right frequency, just like it's supposed to be. Today I would like to speak about the origins of evil, something that I think many of you were interested about before when it comes to, I touched a little bit on that when I was speaking with my friend Caroline on my last video that I recorded about 2 weeks ago. How the black dragon started to infiltrate the fields of the internal and external creation. But today I will just give the whole story in detail, and I will also speak a little bit about how exactly they did that, how they got into our time matrix, since most of you that are watching me probably know that the fall in this time matrix started with different Draconian and Reptilian and Anunnaki collectives that suddenly started falling. And later on, they started infiltrating the lower dimensions. However, I remember when I was reading that excerpt that actually the fall in Density 4 was explained further in the book called Voyagers of Ashayana Dean. I've been wondering, okay, they fell, but how exactly did they start to degenerate? If they were Christic races, how come did they have the potential to fall? If they were holding the full 12 strands with all of the subharmonics, what's been exactly going on? And I think that those latest transmissions that I received are giving a lot of answers to that question, why exactly they fell. And that actually the moment when those races, those reptilian and draconian and other races, the moment they came to existence, they were already carrying a certain potential to fall. And this potential, unfortunately, got directly manifested, and we are seeing consequences of that today. So I'm going to give a little bit of more of an insight how that story of the fall in Density 4 is actually connected to that Elasian experiment that I've been talking about 2 weeks ago. And I will share a little bit of my perspective on how do I perceive this good and evil polarity, and how actually that is right now being united with the eternal frequencies that are coming to this planet, and how do we actually remove that overlay of perceiving things in a very bipolar way, where we always see the good and the bad. And it is very difficult to understand that a long time ago they used to be one, because they are actually coming from one source. So I will give actually like the reason why do we see things from such a bipolar perspective. And not only us, but many Christic races. Why do we all live in this bipolarity, and why we actually cannot come together? So I think this is going to be an interesting one. I prepared the presentation, so basically a part of this series that I started, Path Towards Remembrance, I will be sharing different presentations, different slides, so that we all have some visuals as I describe that, because I think that's going to be way more effective to explain and much easier. And at the end, I will have something exciting to announce, something that many of you have been asking me about lately, and that is about the classes, the PLASMAREGENESIS classes that are about to start again, but I will announce this at the very end of this video. So I suppose we should get started. So as I mentioned, we will speak about the origins of evil. Why did this creation started falling? What was actually the story behind it? So you can either treat it as a certain explanation of why do we have evil in creation, or you can just treat it as a fairy tale, whatever you prefer. So when it comes to the question that we should all ask ourselves, are good and evil considered to be polarities? And is there a moment when those two polarities of the good and evil come together? That actually happens when one truly starts to integrate their eternal body and begins the process of transition into the eternal creation domains. Because if we think about the plasma body construct, the plasma body is a certain conduit of frequency that enables the communication of the external light body with the eternal urea vapor body. So activating the plasma body is only a certain stage when it comes to going beyond separation and beyond any kind of polarities. However, the true integration starts to take place when we actually begin accreting that true eternal self quantum. So from the perspective of the eternal consciousness, there is no division into good and evil. Every single thing is perceived as an indelible aspect of creation and one's personal cosmic dance. And what I'm referring to as the cosmic dance, some of you may remember it from the PLASMAREGENESIS classes, is basically the cosmic dance is a dance of forms, a dance of journeys, experiences. When we begin our cycles in the cosmoversal creation bubble that we are at right now, we can treat this experience, or more like sets of different experiences, as a personal dance of the soul, as we are basically experiencing in various domains of this creation and interacting with all of its other aspects. So the cosmic dance is basically always a co-creation with other aspects of creation. The true eternal essence maintains ideal balance and harmonization between these two polarities. So when we are fully in unity with our eternal self-essence, the good and evil to a certain degree become one. There is really no separation in that regards. An eternal Euradian essence cannot be dominated or hijacked by either good or bad, because it managed to embrace both of them and break out of the artificial yin-yang cycles, or it never entered them on the first place. So what happened, and I'm gonna say it now and I will get into the details later, is that something has been really messed up in the manifestation templates of our cosmoverse on the internal and external creation level. And that is called the yin-yang overlay, which is basically setting that extreme division between the good and the bad. So once you manage to transition into the eternal creation cycles and you become this unified Euradian essence, which means the organic essence of your eternal self-identity, there is no good or bad anymore. They are perceived as one consciousness. Both aspects are being united with the source consciousness because they both originated from the same place. That's why solving the polarity drama can progressively occur by each conscious essence residing in the external or internal creation fields, beginning the process of the eternalization and embodiment of the flames of Urea for the inner harmonization, and the Urada force, which is the eternal creation force that allows for the unification of the good-evil polarities. The polarity into good and evil occurred due to the Elysian first fall and the emergence of the black dragons. So if you're wondering who created that yin-yang overlay in the first place, these were the black dragon races. They are pretty much responsible for setting that primal separation in the manifestation templates of this creation. And it's worth realizing that if you set those distortions in the manifestation templates of a cosmos, all of the races that reside in this cosmos are going to pick up the same distortions. So it started to affect many races. It started to affect their consciousness. And that brings us to a question: what happened during the Elysian experiment? And why do we actually find ourselves in this situation? So it may sound a little bit scary, this whole story, especially if you're a little bit sensitive to this kind of topics. So if you feel like this will be too overwhelming for you, you can just come back to it whenever you feel ready. So I'm going to start reading this story from my transcripts, and I'm probably going to be adding a little bit of my own things in between, as I usually do. So in order to find out the original motive behind the creation of this time matrix, we need to go back to the internal creation field and what happened about 988 billion years ago. What was referred to as the Elysian experiment that led to the first fall had been initiated by a group of the Elysian Alhambra councils. So that was in the internal creation fields. The purpose of the experiment was to find out how one and identity starts to act when it completely disconnects from the source. Even though such experiments have been performed before, it has been the first attempt in history of this creation bubble to see what happens when the full disconnection takes place. The volunteers that agreed to take part in that project are presently known as the Black Dragons, even though they are simply the fallen Elysians. So the races that decided to be a part of this experiment were the Elysian Alhambra races. And they wanted to experience something that has not been experienced before in this creation. And that was full disconnection from the source fields, where there is no energy flow, there is no energy exchange between that being and the source field whatsoever. And that is basically completely cutting those beings off from any kind of supplies of quantum and not allowing them to be in co-creation with other races. So that decision has been made. The experiment, the idea of the experiment has been approved. And that's how this game started. And before I get to the details, it's worth mentioning that at first this experiment was supposed to be performed in very safe circumstances, where those beings were at first existing in like a separated system where they were being observed and the whole research was being performed. But then everything kind of got out of control. And the Elysians, since that has never been really done before, they kind of had they had no idea what to do next. And that's when the whole drama started. So I will get to that in a moment. The experiment has been approved by the Elysian Tribunal Council, and it had been found as an experience that had the potential to expand and accelerate the evolutionary path of many life forms, as well as be a precious learning material that could bring more wisdom and knowledge to the source field for the further review. Participation in the experiment was voluntary, and it involved a group of Elasians that decided to cut off from the source, along with the observers or watchers, that would keep an eye on the whole experiment. Once the experiment began, it caused a major shock among the Elasian councils, and it led not only to the creation of the fatality factor, which has been seen among other races in previous experiments, but also to the creation of a new type of coding, which had come into being due to the 100% reversal, the gonfal coding. Such disconnection caused an extreme polarity condition and forced the fallen Elasians to breach the cosmic code, or the cosmic law, through abuse and energy drain of the organic internal creation environment and its life forms to be able to sustain their fallen templates. So what started to happen is that a new type of coding has been developed through this complete disconnection. If a being starts to fall, at first, if it exists in the external creation fields, it begins with the reversal of the light body template, which is referred to as the metatronic reversal. Then you've got certain reversals on the plasma template, which is referred to as the fatality factor. And now, once your plasma template starts to get reversed, you start to attract the reversed plasma currents and you circulate them through your anatomy. And this is what many collectives have been attempting. But if this fatality factor reaches a certain point where it reaches the 100% of reversal, where the being is circulating only reversed plasmas through its anatomy, no crystic plasmas whatsoever, it starts to develop the gonfal consciousness and the gonfal coding. And that's basically what happened to the black dragons from the beginning. Because they had no connection to the source frequencies, no connection to the crystic plasmas, they started running the reversed currents. They started abusing other races to get energy at all, because if they didn't get any energy, they would just deplete themselves. And that's basically how this drama started. The experiment started to get out of control once that gonfal coding has been developed as a result of that complete disconnection. Due to their expansive and exploitative nature, the observers of the Christic Elasian groups decided to buffer a part of the internal creation space where the experiment was taking place to prevent the fallen Elasians from further invasion and to protect other Christic races from being affected. This buffered zone became known as the Black Zone, or Allah. And that's kind of where the name of the Islamic God is coming from. It's basically whenever they say Allah, they are calling in that first gonfal system or the Black Zone, because later that Black Zone became the first ever gonfal system, also called Allah. Some of the observers sent a petition to the tribunal councils to stop the experiment and provide the host offer or the redemption contract to the fallen Elasians. However, for most of them, it had already been too late. The host offers have been rejected, and the fallen Elasians, also known as the Black Dragons, continued with their expansion. So for most of the Black Dragons, things have went too far, and they were too much in that mindset of separation to be able to go back to where it was before, being in that connection with the source at all time. That's why those host offers have been rejected. And that's when the Elasian councils had to make a certain decision whether they will just put that experiment to an end by simply vaporizing the Black Dragons, or whether they will let it continue and see whether that's going to be beneficial to the entire creation. So After a long time of struggle and resistance, the Elysian councils called for the help of the eternal Nomia guardians, residing in the highland heavens of the Uralei Conservatory. And they are from the eternal creation planes. So since there was no solution from the perspective of the councils from the internal creation, they basically needed the higher councils to help them out with that. And that's been kind of happening with the levels of the Earth drama that have been progressing. That's why there's been so many introductions to various councils. However, that doesn't have to be the case anymore because we are working with the eternal frequencies. So pretty much this drama doesn't have to upstep anymore. We reach the highest level possible of what's been going on this planet with the abuse of its life forms. That's why the source called in the transcendental host that will take place within 200 years. And there is no way back, luckily. When it comes to those different levels of the host, probably in the beginning of next week, I will release another video and I will just keep expanding on how this transcendental host works, and I will also mention the eternal gates, because actually they are right now a very important aspect of what's going on. However, after a long time of struggle and resistance, the Elysian councils called for the help of the eternal Nomia guardians, residing in the highland heavens of the Uralei Conservatory. Seeing the level of the drama and the possible dangers that the uncontrolled expansion of the experiment may cause, the Nomia agreed for the direct intervention. Most of them stepped down from the highland heavens of the eternal creation to the internal creation fields. The gates, or the buffer zone between the black zone, Allah, and the rest of the internal creation field, have been opened to allow the Nomia to directly come in and offer the hosting arrangement for the Black Dragon crew, as well as to provide help to all life forms that have been trapped inside of the Black Zone. However, opening of the buffer zone allowed some of the Black Dragons to expand to other levels of the internal creation fields and downstep themselves to the external creation fields through reversing the coding of certain Alhambra races and removing the organic frequency field that separates the internal and external creation. Progressive expansion of the Black Zone led to the creation of the first ever Gonfall system, in which the Nomia essences that downstepped from the highland heavens have been trapped. This is referred to as the Elysian First Fall. So what happened is that when the drama went too far and the Elysians reached out to the Nomia councils, there's been a problem because that Gonfall zone was basically buffered. So those black dragons weren't able to get out. But in order for the Nomia races to come in, this buffer zone had to be opened to allow them in. And that's when some of the black dragons started getting out of that quarantine zone, and they basically managed to expand to other places of the creation, while some of the Nomia got stuck in the black zone. And that's where we have that drama between the eternal twins, where I was speaking about that on my latest recording with Carlene, where the male eternal twin was the one that came to assist the inside of the black zone, but they would get stuck, and then that feminine eternal twin had to come down as well and assist, because basically her masculine aspect was in danger of falling. So that quantum, and very often those women were also being trapped themselves. So what was happening is that each time a certain Nomiya essence was coming in, it would often get stuck in that gonfall field, in that gonfall system, and that was giving them massive amounts of quantum, a quantum that have been later used to create other gonfall systems and to drag more and more life forms to the inside of them. Due to massive expansion of the Black Dragon Legion to multiple places in the entire cosmoverse, the Elysian Tribunal Councils decided to create a new time matrix that, through its progressive evolution, could restore the energy quantum that has been lost during the Elysian First Fall. It is the time matrix that we currently reside in. So basically, there's been a big purpose behind the creation of the time matrix that we are at right now. And I'm talking about strictly this 15-dimensional system that we are located in. That's what the time matrix is. So all of the races that decided to incarnate in that system, in our local time matrix, were incarnating here for a purpose, and that was actually to assist the Black Dragons. So I'm gonna get more into detail, and that is going to give us already certain context on how our time matrix got infiltrated. So, as I said, the Elysian Tribunal Council created our time matrix, and through its progressive evolution, we were supposed to restore all of the energy quantum that has been lost during the Elysian First Fall. Some of the Nomiya essences that suffered fragmentation inside of the gonfall system decided to directly assist in this process. The three core external flames, which is the blue flame of the Elohi Elohim, the golden flame of the Seraphi Seraphim, and the violet flame of the Braharama, they have been birthed by the Eleisa silver seed through the downstepping of the three flames of reclamation. This process provided the potential of the eternal host for the time matrix if needed. So right at the beginning of the creation of our time matrix, we have been given the downstepped version of the flames of reclamation, so that when the time is right, we could reactivate them on the eternal current and be able to get out of here, no matter what the condition of the time matrix is. So it was kind of like a certain type of insurance that if things go wrong, we know our way out. The creation of the time matrix began with setting the intrinsic structures of the primal sound and light fields, and afterwards the birthing of the Brenau founder races from the three core flames, the blue, golden, and violet flames. Birthing of the Brenau also involved the eternal angels downstepping from the eternal creation fields and directly incarnating in the fifth density of the external creation as divine embodiments of the primordial virtues. So I haven't spoken about that yet, about the primordial creators and the eternal angels and how you had kind of like an angel demon twin set. I will probably get to that over the next few episodes. But for now, all you need to know is that there were 144 angels. And when I speak about angels, I don't really mean entities. Those 144 angels are basically the eternal primordial essences, each one of them representing a certain virtue. So the reason why those eternal angels have been downstepped into this time matrix is to set the blueprints for all of those Christic virtues that all the Christic races should follow. Shortly after the creation of the life in density 5, certain fractions of the black dragons decided to take the host offer, and they have been accepted to the inside of this time matrix. An aspect of the redemption contract involved incarnation into a new wave of life that had been born in density 4. A part of the bioregenesis agreement included inserting a part of the black dragon gonfall coding into the template of chosen races of the blue, golden, and violet flame. So as you can imagine, these were certain races that later fell. So in order for those black dragons to start healing their template, they needed a certain host. So some of the races that have been created in this time matrix, they agreed to take on a part of that black dragon coding in order to start progressively healing it towards its original Elasian imprint. And these were the Anu races, and later the Anunnakis, the reptilian races, and the Draconians. And basically, those ones were having that vulnerability to fall. That's why after a while, due to the manipulation of the black dragons, as we will find out in a moment, they started falling because they had certain potential for being like that on the first place. So before we had that event that many of you know about, the fall of Aramatena, which happened in density 4, there was something else, and that is referred to as the wars in the heavens, and that took place in the density 5 of this time matrix. So the three founder races downstepped their consciousness into density 4. The blue flame races became known as the Elohi Elohim, and that's where we have those Christic feline races, for example. The golden flame races were the Seraphi Seraphim, and the golden flame races are, for example, the Draconians. And the violet flame races became the Braharama. For a few million years, the evolution was successful, and many Nomiya essences managed to find their way back to the highland heavens. So, as usual, in the beginning, things are going really well, but then everything gets a little bit tricky. However, unrest started to form among the black dragon races that took the host, and they became a resistance movement. The black dragons didn't enjoy the limitations and rules set by the Brenau, the founder races, and they started to influence the races that carried parts of their coding. That included mainly the Draconian, Reptilian, and Anu races. In the meantime, the black dragons started working on the invention of a new hybrid race that would consist of blended Brenau and black dragon codes. This campaign turned out to have deadly consequences and led to the event known as the Wars in the Heavens. And you may wonder why they wanted to create that hybrid on the first place. If they already had certain collectives that they were able to manipulate, why would they need such hybrid? So the reason why the black dragons intended to blend their coding with some of the Brenau was because they were the only beings that had access codes to the buffer field that had been created around this time matrix to protect it from the influence of the members of the Black Dragon Legion that didn't take the host. So in the beginning, this time matrix was 100% safe from the fall. Only those black dragons that took the host and agreed to incarnate among the certain races in density 4 that were supposed to assist with their healing process, they were let into the inside of the time matrix. But those ones that didn't take the host and they were only focused on the invasion, they were outside of that buffer zone. So in order to let in, some of those fallen black dragons, that buffer field had to be dissolved. And that's why some of those rebelled black dragon races were intending to get that coding for this buffer field that was being held within the Brenau coding. I hope that makes sense. Forced interbreeding that occurred without the full knowledge of the black dragon's intentions led to opening of the buffer field or the buffer zone and letting in more of the black dragon legions that instantly created an artificial interface between their gonfal system in the internal creation, Allah, and the density 5 of the external creation. And once that interface was opened, they let the demons in. The 144 angels that would reside in density 5 as the guardians of the Christic virtues and laws had been directly called on by the Brenau to assist with the upcoming problem, since it presented danger for the entire creation. During multiple attempts to rescue multiple souls that got stuck inside of the Allah gonfal interface, many of the angels fell and their aspects got stuck. The volume of the quantum collected by the black dragons was so large that they managed to open 2 more gonfal systems that would create a complete interface within the entire internal and external creation. This also led to the fall of the 144 angels. So basically, same thing that happened with the Nomiya back when they were trying to save the black dragons while they were still inside of the Allah gonfal system inside of the black zone. Same thing happened with those angels, and hijacking certain portions of quantum of those angels allowed to bring those reversed virtues in. So once those angels have been partially hijacked, it was much more easy to affect certain races that were directly interacting with those angels and were kind of connected to their host field. So the whole creation became very vulnerable. And since those angels were, even though they were on the external creation level, they were holding huge amounts of quantum. That amount of the quantum was so large that it allowed those black dragon races to create 2 more gonfal systems. So that's like a really, really big, massive amount of quantum. And if you're wondering about this number of 144 angels, as I said, I will get into those angels and their demonic aspects in the upcoming videos. However, when you have those 72 angels and 72 demons that are mentioned in the teachings of Kabbalah, and 72 plus 72 equals 144, those are basically, right now, those beings are known as the fallen collectives due to the massive fragmentation of their quantum. But in the past, they used to be massive fields of consciousness. So that fragmentation, some of you may carry memories of that. And that's why so many people enjoy connecting to angels, because they don't quite understand that those are not the angels that we once used to know when this entire creation was so innocent. And that brings us to the fall of Aramatena. And basically what this quantum of those 144 angels have been used for. So the reverse quantum of those angels has been later used to create new hybrid races, since their DNA was combined with certain reptilian draconian nano-collectives, giving birth to the Wisa collective. So now when you have those Wisa decks and the Wisa drugs, they are directly deriving from this fallen quantum of those 144 plus the other races that were carrying the gunfall coding of the black dragons in their templates. Similar operations took place with the crystal spiders from the parallel Akasha that used to be the guardians of the web of life. Millions of the etheric webs that contained organic Christic codes and information has been hijacked through the abuse of the organic genetic code and later on led to the birth of the Borgia Phantom Fall Matrix. So, basically, when I think I mentioned the spiders when I was talking about the elemental kingdom. So if anybody's curious to learn more about them and how they were actually creating this eternal web of life, this is actually something interesting to get back to. So all of those events that I've been talking about so far, they are referred to as the wars in heavens, and they lasted for another 350 billion years, and they had a direct impact on what started to happen in density 4, disrupting the organic evolutionary process of the Christic races. The wars in heavens had a significant impact on further events in the Lyra system. The generation of the Draconian and Anunnaki template made them progressively more disconnected from the Aya source. This situation could have easily been managed if the 144 angels hadn't fallen. The fall of the 144 angels, again each of them carrying one of the 144 Christic virtues or wisdoms, led to the loss of those virtues that the degenerated races would have been able to retrieve from the divine blueprint. So even if those reptilian races or the draconian races suddenly started falling, if that black dragon coding would take over, they would still have the possibility to connect to that field of those angels, of those eternal angels, to retrieve back those Christic virtues through which they could keep healing that fallen template that they carry. But that option has been taken away from them, and I would say it's been a very deliberate movement from the side of the black dragons, because they knew that if this quantum of the 144 gets fragmented, there will be no option for those races to get back to Christic again. The quest for domination and power led to the fall of the Stargate 12 on Aramatena in the Lyra system, which served as a passageway outside of this time matrix. This operation has been orchestrated by the Black Dragons through the manipulation of the Anu races behind the scenes. So again, these were not just like suddenly races from density 4 that started to suddenly have their template degenerated. There's been a certain reality behind it, a very tangible reality. And we are seeing this until today, how actually those manipulations had a very significant impact on the entire creation. How we started with that purpose of trying to help the black dragons with their healing process, and how intelligently, I would say, they deceived all those races that were trying to help. The main motivation of the black dragons, why they decided to come after this time matrix, was to fully isolate this system from the energy supply from other systems. The only opening that has been kept was referred to as the Elysian Passage, that still kept the connection with the rest of the organic internal creation fields, known as the Elysian fields, that didn't get reversed. So the only spark of hope was that Elysian Passage that remained open, but it also had to be buffered so that the black dragons cannot come and infiltrate more and more of the quantum of the internal creation field. So that option to get the internal crystal river host, which was initiated in 2012, that's basically after the fall of Aramatena, the guardian races have been preparing for that time until actually 2012. So that was like a very long time of preparation, and they were still giving a certain chance to the black dragons in case they decided to take the host agreements, that Elysian passage wouldn't have to be utilized. So what the black dragons did is that they removed that organic buffer field created by the Brennau races to protect this time matrix, and they inserted a false one, putting the entire time matrix into the quarantine zone. So there was kind of no way out for every consciousness that was coming to the inside of this time matrix. And about how did we actually get to the internal host, and how our planet Earth got to that place where it's actually one of the main ascension stations in this time matrix. I will get to that in the upcoming videos, and I will also speak more about the Gaia and its counterpart Maya, because actually those two planets are playing a massive role in the history of this entire time matrix. But for now, I will explain a little bit more about how the black dragons actually managed to control this time matrix for such a long time, and how they put all of us into that state of bipolarity. Because there's a certain reality behind it, there's certain physics, and that's actually this symbol that we are seeing over here, the yin-yang, and our brain is actually the reflection of it. So, due to the emergence of the Black Dragon Legion and their invasion of the external and internal creation fields, the original manifestation templates of these two creation domains got severely damaged. What has become instantly noticeable to the Elysian races that were observing the Black Dragon experiment was their maliciously Machiavellian personality that did not aim to fully get rid of the Christic races, but they aimed to divide and conquer. And the way they did it was through splitting and shattering the key aspects of the manifestation template of this Cosmia. So basically, there are certain races in this cosmoverse that kind of want to get rid of everybody, and they just really don't care. But the black dragons are kind of smarter than that. They know that they need quantum, so they know that they have to sustain certain life forms. So that divide and conquer strategy that has been applied to this, to many agendas of this planet, has been actually the black dragon mentality since the beginning. Many of the royal families actually carry their coding. You can just kind of see that in their eyes. So, okay, what I wrote down is actually what I just said. Since they had no access to any quantum whatsoever, they needed to take it from other races. Once the key manifestation templates, and basically the manifestation templates are certain codes. You can kind of imagine it as certain computer programming that is responsible for the outpicturing of the holographic reality. Once the key manifestation templates of the internal and external creation have been split, the black dragons began their progressive infiltration through reprogramming certain aspects of these key templates and building their own structures on them. So they managed to hijack those manifestation templates and kind of adjust them to their own liking. The key aspect of their project, as well as their headquarters, was built in the internal creation fields through utilizing the hijacked quantum of the fallen Nomia races, or the fallen Nomia souls. Through this massive quantum, the Black Dragons built their own reversed version of the Holy Trinity. And before I get to that, when it comes to the aspect of the Trinity, we've got something that is referred to as the organic trinity of the Ephia, and that is also corresponding to the 3 domains of creation. So you've got so-called the 3 fields of divinity. You've got the Elasa races that correspond to the external domain, the Aleira races that correspond to the internal domain, and the Areia races that correspond to the eternal domain. And those 3 create that holy trinity of the Ephia. So the Black Dragons basically were trying to create the anti-source, which is like the reversed holy trinity of the Ephia races. And they created the 3 gonfal systems, and each one of those gonfal systems is an aspect of that holy or not so holy trinity. And you could also call each one of those gonfal systems the Hell Realms. And they were named Lucifer, Satan, and Baphomet. So all those demonic entities were actually also like the overlords of those gonfal systems. And these 3 gonfal systems have been later connected to various galaxies and universes to constantly drain quantum and spread the reversed programming to the manifestation templates of other systems. So those demonic entities that I mentioned, whenever someone works with them or calls them in, they are directly working with the Black Dragon forces. And the worst thing is that they have no idea about it. So when it comes to that major distortion that caused that separation that we can see in our brains, where we have the split into the right hemisphere and the left hemisphere, and also the yin-yang overlay that is causing this bipolarity between the good and the bad. A major distortion that has been inserted by the Black Dragon forces in the external creation fields was the false yin-yang polarity drama program. In order to create conflicts and dramas for the divide and conquer energy quantum hijacking agenda, the Black Dragon altered the organic manifestation templates of this creation, putting the 2 polarities of good and evil into a state of constant battle. So the reason why we keep having conflicts on this planet is because of a program that is working on an autopilot, all the time putting the good and evil into a state of constant battle. The human brain is the literal manifestation of this split, with the right brain corresponding to the good polarity, which equals to intuition, and the left brain corresponding to the evil polarity, which equals intelligence. So from my perspective, the reason why this drama has been going on for so long is that the Black Dragons were extremely smart, they were extremely intelligent, and that gonfal coding consciousness that has been developed in them allowed them to separate from that aspect of intuition and kind of overtake the right side of the brain through the left brain. And once they started to affect other races, through that yin-yang overlay, those Christic races that didn't have that gonful coding, they started to get a little bit confused. Like, what is good, what is bad? Like, I really want to be good, but there's so much evil in the world, right? Many of us are feeling this way. And that's because of that split in our brains. So once we start to bring the third aspect, which is the eternal consciousness, those polarities start to come together and integrate into one. Because as long as they are separate, as long as we keep the left brain separate and the right brain separate, there is no integration whatsoever. And it's hard to go beyond the separation. So, as I mentioned, this split affected significantly both the Christic and the fallen races, since it affected the major manifestation templates of this creation. So as I mentioned in the beginning of this video, if there are some distortions on the level of the cosmos, all of the beings that are within it are getting the same distortion. That's just the way it works, as above, so below. The eternal cosmic dance turned into a cosmic war, which has never been the intention of the primordial God Source consciousness. The teachings of the Yuga cycles, or various teachings about cycles of enlightenment and darkness, are only partially true due to the way our planet, galaxy, and the entire universe have been programmed to carry these polarities. So there's many cycles, there's many teachings that speak about like the moment when there's like a lot of lightness and everybody is in that golden age, and then there is suddenly this, I don't know, stone age where everything is kind of falling into darkness and there's a polarity fight between the good and the evil. And then this okay, this is very interesting what just happened to me. But I hope that all of the video got recorded, because literally I got thrown out of my own meeting for a moment. Anyway, as I was saying, once that polarity gets resolved, then you have another golden age era. So this cycle of this constant fight between the light and the dark has been inserted into the manifestation templates of this creation. We do not need to experience it like this. We can choose to experience something in polarity, and that is respected by the source, but we don't have to. It's always up to us. And now just a small difference between the black dragons and the white dragons, because both of them, if we speak about certain collectives of fallen races, there's like a slight difference between them, and that's related to the theme races. The theme races that, if someone doesn't know who the themes are, they are basically the ones that went through the whole ascension process on the external creation level. They completed a certain level of the Christ-star ascension, and then they came back to the external creation fields again with the fully activated plasma template. So the white dragons are the ones that were the themes and they fell. The black dragons are a little bit different. So I'm just going to read what has come to me when it comes to that aspect, so that we kind of understand the difference in the consciousness as well. So insertion of the false yin-yang cycles led to the progressive degeneration of many Christic races that simply lacked the discernment to properly find the balance in the polarity war they were experiencing, not only on the outside, but also within themselves. Because the yin-yang overlay was also inserted on the level of the internal creation, meaning that it was also an aspect of the plasma template. And that's really bad news. Because if that was only on the level of the light body, that would have been much easier to handle. In order to assist the Christic races with finding way back to their integrity, some of the ascended theme races downstepped to the external creation domain. However, in order to do that, they had to take on the same distortion as the Christic races in need, since the yin-yang overlay was located in the external templates and also internal to a certain degree of the entire cosmos. This led to many themes falling and creating the White Dragon Brotherhood of the false light agenda that hijacked many Christics that got stuck in the universal polarity drama. The only hope for the end of this conflict of endless cycles of light fighting against the darkness is the eternal and transcendental host through which every being can directly reconnect to their eternal Euradian templates to reclaim their connection to their eternal self-identity. So this yin-yang overlay had major consequences, and it basically caused all of those different light agendas to come to game. All of those beautiful Pleiadians speaking about the love and light, the Ashtar Command, the Galactic Federation. This is all a part of the White Dragons deceiving all of us. And then we have another agenda of the Black Dragons and all of those Draconian races, Borgia races, Phitans, etc., being directly influenced by this larger collective. It's a structure of the pyramid, basically. We also have it on our planet. And I will get to that probably in the next episode. However, it's also worth mentioning that the yin-yang overlay in itself, it also, on this planet especially, it created the false idea of the karmic wheel and the vicious circle of reincarnation. So staying in that consciousness of polarity basically was also keeping us stuck in the cycles of endless reincarnation because of our consciousness constantly trying to resolve that polarity drama. And that brings us to the question, how far does the evil reach? Is there like a certain limitation where this can stop, where we can be untouchable and indelible? So the Elasian experiment proved that every consciousness can be affected, and each being has the potential to fall, regardless of their template level, even though there are certain exceptions to this. And I will get to those exceptions in the future. However, if you are a fully embodied Nomiya soul, Nomiya essence, you have this coding that you may fall to a certain degree, but you will never fully fall. But not everyone has that. You need to be a fully embodied essence from the highland heavens. One becomes affected internally when the plasma template or the internal template goes through the reversal, as it may shut down one's connection to their eternal core self. The plasma template is the direct interface between the eternal Urea body and the external light body and one's nervous networks. So the distortions in the plasma template may also distort this conduit. There is no limit when it comes to the fall level in the external and internal fields. Transition to the eternal Ura-Lake conservatory domain can be achieved through unifying the good-evil polarity by releasing the yin-yang overlay from one's plasma template to enable achieving external, internal, and eternal state of unity. So on the level of the external and internal creation, you can fall infinitely. Every single consciousness can be affected, and that's the sad truth about it. This is what the Elasian experiment proved, that if you have a certain potential to fall, this may be later used against you. And I would say that those that start their spiritual journeys and they are going through those cycles of light and darkness constantly, that yin-yang overlay is definitely something to work on. And this is something that I'm also planning to introduce on my classes. How do we practically remove it from especially our plasma templates, because that will release one of the overlays that kind of block that connection to the eternal self. However, basically integration of that eternal body is slowly starting to clear that overlay by itself. And before we get to the end, here's a little bit about the three main hijacking campaigns of the angelic human bloodline. So more like down to earth, what are the three main events through which the Christic races have been affected? Because actually some of us also carry the distortions that come from the black dragons. Some of us carry their coding, and that's why some people have such fallen consciousness. So this is going to give us some answers. The first aspect are the plasma wars, which were a direct attack on the angelic humans of the Seeding One in order to stop the revolution. So that was about 5 million years ago. The attack was performed from two versions of this planet, Earth in density 1 and Gaia in density 3. At that time, the planet Earth was being hosted by its two mothers, Maya and Gaia. Wars of pure plasma energy resulted in massive fragmentation of the soul, as well as the internal template quantum. So the angelic humans received major fragmentation, not only on the level of their soul matrix, but also their plasma templates. So if you feel like you struggle with the dark flowering affliction a lot, the plasma wars actually might be the answer why. Because you might even have trapped aspects of your plasma body on other timelines, and that's when it becomes really crazy. This massive quantum was later put under massive frequency fence, referred to as the Wall of Time, to separate Earth from its two twin mothers, Gaia and Maya, as well as to cut off the angelic human connection to their organic oversoul matrix, and as a result to connect them to a false Gaian matrix, with no remembrance about the eternal embrace of the two twin mothers. So the eternal embrace is basically referred to as that host through Maya and Gaia that was taking place at the time of Seeding One, but was later brutally stopped through the plasma wars. So that wall of time is basically a certain frequency fence that keeps many aspects of ourselves trapped in time, trapped in illusions and projections. And it may also be one of the sources of the dark flowering coming to the plasma template. Another aspect are the timeline wars, which are taking place on multiple timelines and probability dominions of Mother Earth. And they last also right now. They initiated about 150 million years ago on parallel Earth and connected through various periods of time. The main goal of the timeline wars is to blank slate certain aspects of planetary and galactic history, just remove certain history from the records, because memory holds power. Insert the wheel of karma overlay to put the souls in endless incarnational loop, also for the energy quantum drain. Dark flower the internal plasma template, and to enable interbreeding with phantom and gonfall races through various cycles of time. The timeline wars last until today, and they will be finalized at the end of the 200-year transcendental host period. So we are coming to the end of the timeline wars and slowly to the end of this creation. And the third aspect is hijacking of the indigo bloodline. So, the infiltration of the royal magic grail indigo bloodline began shortly after its creation about 800,000 years ago, and it was orchestrated through the Tantri Asia twin sets. So the plasma twins have been severely affected through that event. This process would occur in 3 phases. And by the way, this wouldn't be the case with the eternal twins, only with the Tantri Asia twins. Through the trapped aspects in the wall of time, the black dragons would progressively infiltrate and dark flower the male twin, Aiden, leading to its template degeneration, and very often lead to possession by the black dragon. Through the sexual interaction, the male twin Aiden would pass on the plasma template distortions to the female twin Yoshi, and the infiltration of the Yoshi's template would enable the black dragon to interbreed, either directly or indirectly, to bring the gonfal coding into the angelic human lineage. So it was like a very big deception of when it comes to those plasma twins, the Tantri Asia. They were directly affected literally the moment they came into the planet. And that's why the level of the twin contracts had to be upgraded during the eternal host period, so that this drama doesn't repeat itself again. And the last aspect is the solution for the polarity drama. So I'm going to touch base on how this works from the practical perspective. How does this eternal body unite all the other bodies, clearing the polarity? A solution for this polarity drama arises as the entire cosmoverse is going through the transcendental and eternal host period. Transmissions of the eternal Urea and transcendental Una frequencies will enable the eternal creation domain to open up to the internal and external domain to progressively clear the yin-yang overlay, allowing for the external and internal templates to go through the process of the eternalization and unification into the eternal vapor Urea structure. Depending on the host pathway that each eternal self-essence chooses, either the 900-year eternal host, return to the eternal domain, or the 200-year transcendental host, return to the one source field, you can choose one of those pathways, it will be provided the opportunity to release the phase lock that keeps the external, internal, and eternal templates separate from each other. Stepping into the eternal consciousness of unity is an aspect of one of the 3 gifts of the source, which is the eternal connection. It allows each being to perceive every single conscious life form and each experiential event as a part of the eternal cosmic dance of creation that keeps learning about oneself. Polarity into the good and evil is not essential unless the collective consciousness of the cosmoverse decides for it. So there are certain creation bubbles that decided for it, but it's not ours. Ours decided for an experiment that has gone too far. There is a moment when the God Source consciousness steps in and brings all of its aspects back into unity. The God Source eternal consciousness intervenes directly only through triggering the transcendental host. So that's why we are having this 200-year host, because basically the source kind of said it has been enough and it's time to follow a different path. So that's why we are moving in very quickly with the transcendental host. That's what we are here for. And that would be it when it comes to the origins of evil. I hope that this brought you some more perspectives on how the concept of the evil started in this creation on the first place. If you are curious to find out more about this and the eternal creation mechanics, you are most welcome to join the PLASMAREGENESIS classes. I am opening the registration now, so I'm going to post the link under this video if you are curious to check it out. Everybody is most welcome to join if this idea resonates with you. I guess I know that many of you have also heard it through your friends and stuff, so if you've been a part of the classes before, you're most welcome to join, since I'm gonna be sharing new information. If you are a beginner, I'm also opening a new group. Basically, the main goal of those classes is to develop the connection to your eternal core self, to learn how to be your own healer. And we will be also working with the eternal creation technologies that are supposed to assist you with the transitioning into the eternal creation domain and activating your eternal body, which I would say can be your biggest support as long as you are incarnate here and wherever you are in this universe. So I do hope that you enjoyed this video. It's been lovely finally being able to record something, as there's been a lot of interference with that. And as I said, I will record probably something new next week. And there will be much more explanation about the different aspects of the eternal creation. So I hope you enjoyed it, and hopefully I will see some of you on my classes. Take care and bye-bye.